Nice opinion. Just one tiny problem with it. Inspecting your post, it looks like your opinion is different from mine. Let me tell you something. I am the baseline for opinions. Any opinion I hold is objectively correct, and as a result, any other opinions are wrong. Guess what? You happen to hold a wrong one. I hope you know that your opinion is now illegal. I have contacted the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Navy SEALs, Secret Service, and your mom. You'll be sorry you ever shared your opinions. By the time you're reading this, you'll be done for. Nature will punish you. Humanity will punish you. Supernatural beings will punish you. Space will punish you. We decided just to make sure we'll nuke your house from orbit, so there's no chance you can run away. Everyone will know you will die. It's a small price to pay to remove your wrong opinion from this world.
All right. So give me 1 second. So we're deciding to react to Vshojo, which later I will do the Madein thing, but for now we're just gonna time loop, and then I have more things that have happened today, so we'll get over that. But for now, we're going to react to the timeline of the Vshojo, which. So let's get into it.
And how big if I'm
The revelations by Iron Mouse and many other of the talents at Vshojo may very well end that VTubing company.
Also, as of this day, as of now, they have no one. Let's check before we get started, check the actual site itself. Okay, so they still have all the talents there, but obviously they're all gone.
Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and this is Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. This is an insane saga that really, it even peaks perhaps what is going down and what went down last year with Doki Bird and with Niji Sanji, insofar as this is looking like it will end this VTubing company, Vshojo, completely, and because we're seeing a massive pool of talent that is looking to exodus from that company. Now, just understand this is a fast facts pre-recorded video, but I recorded this after listening to Case on stream, where she was interviewing with the Japanese quote-unquote branch, we'll talk about that, CEO. So we're going to go through all the facts today and really stick to the legal analysis. If you want to see the full version where I'm doing more, playing more video, I play all of Iron Mouse's video and I play some other stuff as well. You check out my live version, but this is the abbreviated version for those that want to get just down to the facts. And of course, I've got a PowerPoint. So with this case, obviously, it all started with the mouse. And there are two clear things that she dropped in her message that are legally relevant. First is that she has not been paid wages. So she's owed back wages. She's not been paid for a long time. And these payments that she's owed are in delinquency. They've been owed to her for a long time. She hasn't been paid. And this is something that has been mirrored by other talents. We now have talents such as Kason coming out and saying, I have not been paid for a long time. In fact, I believe she said September of last year, a very, very long time without payments.
That's almost a year.
Which is severe, which is significant. So there is an extended period of time with which people have not paid out to the talents. That's a massive, massive problem in and of itself. But the other great problem, and the problem that can have huge criminal liability, is the potential fraud related to the charity, related to the Immune Deficiency Foundation that Iron Mouse has always been so vocal for, because it's the cause that represents research that would help people like her and give them a brighter future and hope. And it really was something that she was so invested in. And they decided to take $500,000 and not pay that out to charity. Whatever they did with that, it was not paid to charity. And that is a massive, massive issue. And that's an issue that can see people behind bars, that can have criminal penalties. Absolutely. Once again, these are our allegations at this point, but based on the number of talents speaking up, based on the number of talents that have removed the Vshojo branding, we have to, at this point, assume there is some sort of substance behind these allegations. Of course, they are going to have to fight these out. They are going to have to prove this in court or prove this through the regulatory process. However, at this point, going forward and through the scope of this video, understand that I am taking the allegations as credible. For whatever argument you may make of they're not proven yet, whatever, I understand you, but we're going to take them as credible for the purpose of this analysis. So let's continue here. So we had obviously Iron Mouse speak up, and then we had Kson get on with the JP CEO. Now, this was very enlightening and actually gives us more of the business side of what is going on at Vshojo. It's very clear from this that Vshojo is in financial hot water, that they were not profitable. And whatever the distinction was between JP and US, it's very important to note that there was no official legal distinction. That is an internal distinction, the same as a department, for example, saying HR or whatever else, right? Or janitorial staff. It's an internal distinction. It still fell under the control and is the legal responsibility of the headquarters in San Francisco. So the JP branch, as much as that might be a certain amount of talents that was managed by this quote unquote CEO, was not distinguished financially. So those funds that were coming in were being slushed together. So whatever profit JP was making was not offsetting clearly the losses they were taking on the US side or with their other.
We're about to see if these two antiperspirants can stand up to the heat.
That's it. Their other talents. So as a whole, it seems they were in financial dire straits. Now, one big thing that was brought up during this was that the staff was paid and not the talent. There is a very important reason for that, which we're going to get into, which is all of the talents are designated, and this is for almost all VTubing companies. I have not seen one contract, and I've reviewed all of them, including the Vshojo contract, Niji Sanji, HoloLive, Vector, all the greatest hits from big to small, Face Connect. I've seen all of them. I haven't seen a single contract that has said these people are employees. We consider them employees. They all try to make them independent contractors. That's very important because when it comes to fighting wages and paying wages, you have to pay employees under labor law, whether it's US law, Japanese law, really all around the world, you've got to pay out those wages. But when it comes to independent contractors, well, you can shaft them, and then they've got to come and sue you or bring an action against you or a claim against you to try to get those back. It puts a massive burden on them to claim those amounts of money. Now, I have, since the Niji Sanji crisis, been screaming from the top of the hills that this is BS. And I'll put some money in the swear jar for that one. These people are employees. Whether you consider them full-time or part-time employees, they are under the control and authority of these VTubing companies. Now, I understand that there was a lot more anonymity at Vshojo than other companies, but you might consider them in that case more like a part-time employee than a full-time employee that's completely controlled by the company. And in that case, they would still be owed wages under a normal analysis. And mind you, just because a contract says that you are an independent contractor does not mean that a particular state or country might not look at the situation, might not look at all the factors and say, under our law, we're going to consider them an employee. It's very important. And I do think in the VTubing industry going forward, this is a massive lesson that all VTubing talent should be considered employees. They should push for being employees. They should say, no, I'm an employee if I'm going to work for your company because you need to pay me and you need to be liable if you do not pay me. And I don't think the Japanese CEO, listening to him, is the villain here. He's clearly not at the top of the rung. He's not the CEO or CFO or COO or CTO. He's at a lower rung of responsibility. He certainly cannot make shots for the entire company. That was not his responsibility. And certainly, by the way, none of the talents are liable for this. This is something where they are the victims, and they do deserve your support and your appreciation. And I will say this about all of them: Iron Mouse, Kson, Henya, everybody, Mitsubishi, everybody. They do deserve your support and love in this time, and also your understanding that they can't say the things that I can say because they're under a different level of scrutiny. Now, I do hope with some right legal maneuvers, they can finally speak up. And we're going to talk about that today and the way they may be able to speak up. But right now, understand and be patient with them. They need to work with their lawyers in their jurisdiction, or in perhaps California, which is a jurisdiction for Vshojo, where I think is very ripe to bring suits and claims, etc. They need to work with their own lawyers to get this done. So be patient with them to get to that point where
It is the American company. That is true.
they will be able to speak. I do believe that time is going to come sooner than later. Sooner than later. So let's continue with this. The best quote I think from this is "Talent first, my ass." That was probably the best Kason quote out there, period. And I love Kason. I'm definitely a fan. So one important thing here is that Vshojo is an American company.
I mean, that's true because they claim to be talent first, but clearly they aren't talent first since they haven't paid any of them, basically. So obviously they aren't talent first. They're a company. They're themselves first, I guess.
Now we've covered Niji Sanji, we've covered Cobra Corporation, big Japanese corporations. And one issue with those corporations is they're Japanese. And if the talent is American or Canadian or really non-Japanese at all, it's really, really difficult to come at those companies. This is not the problem for Vshojo. Vshojo is an American company, and they're an American company headquartered in one of the states with the most strong consumer protections out there, or strong worker protections, employee protections that are very, very broad out there in all the United States. So this is a massive difference. And especially since many of the talents, particularly Iron Mouse, being a American citizen, right? Puerto Rico, still a citizen of the United States, and still able to bring claims, fully able to bring claims in California court, particularly related to labor. This is something where it is ripe for conflict, ripe for either a lawsuit, criminal filings, regulatory filings, because they are in America. And this is why I say they are sunk. This is why I say this is not a Niji Sanji situation. This is not an any color. This is not a Hololive situation, whatever else. And in those situations, when Niji Sanji, I told everybody, hey, when Doki Bird went down, this is not going to be the end of Niji Sanji by any stretch. Same thing when there's bumps in the road with Hololive, right? When Gura leaves, it's not going to be the end of Hololive. However, this will be the end of Vshojo. This is very, very much going.
And considering what has happened the last 2-3 days, it's very apparent that Vshojo is not, probably the next few days or a month, Vshojo won't exist anymore. It is officially done. They have no one. I think that they also filed bankruptcy, so they are done. They have nothing left
To tank them because of this and because of their financial situation. And mind you, I will point out one other thing. They were founded in 2020. And what was happening in 2020, and I say this as a corporate attorney who was previously working in a law firm related to issuing bonds that were used by governments and corporations, and then working in-house and seeing a lot of borrowing and corporate debt. During that period of time, corporations were borrowing at insanely low rates. They were drunk on debt and drunk on almost free money that was under the cost of inflation. So hell, why not? Let's just borrow as much as possible. So I have no doubt that they were highly leveraged going into this, and they were highly hyped up coming off of the kind of everybody's on the internet during COVID era, and thinking that was going to continue forever. And their financial projections were perhaps unrealistic, given the fact that that was a temporary period of time that was over. And there was definitely bumps in the VTuber market as a whole, as people no longer had to be online all the time. And so, yes, the VTuber market did not grow as it was projected to grow based on 2020 numbers, or based on 2019 numbers, et cetera. So I think this number of the founding is actually relevant, and the fact that they are a relatively new company and they're private. So once again, we don't have a lot of the disclosures that we required of a public company. But let's talk about the contract. So I have seen a Vshojo contract. Now, in full disclosure, it was based on a previous contract. It is not anyone active. So it's an older contract. So they may have changed things in the contract. So I'm basing it on what I said. However, I don't think they've changed certain things. Number one, they do have certain NDA and confidentiality provisions. based on that. I don't think they would have deleted that. I don't think they would have removed that. Those are in the contract. The other most important thing is it does frame them as independent contractors, as non-employees. So that is a super important factor that they
They are not employees. They are contractors. So they aren't actually, like that aren't employees how most people would be classified as employees.
are not called employees, because when you are an employee, you get the protection of labor laws, you get the protection of regulation. All of those things don't necessarily apply to independent contractors. Now, different states handle this differently, different countries handle this differently. If anywhere in the United States is going to handle this differently, it's probably California, which is going to look at that and say, oh, no, these were really employees. These really weren't independent contractors. So,
And of course, it would be California. That is true.
I think that doesn't exclude it, but it is important for the intent here, because the intent was always to shaft them out of payment, was always to not pay them. So let's continue here. So labor law, we're going to talk about this real quick. So this is about the claims for unpaid wages. And once again, a very important factor here is California, particularly if you're going to file it there, which is where Vshojo is headquartered, they don't have any restrictions as to residency status or et cetera. So you can file a labor claim there. Even the people that are part of the corporation that are non-American might have a potential, if they consult with their attorney, to file claims in California in some way, shape, or fashion. Once again, I do believe all the girls that I've heard of, as particularly Iron Mouse, have competent lawyers, and they should listen to their lawyers. Obviously, listen to their lawyers over anything I say. This is more education for the public and education for people in general. But I do believe there's a possibility for them to make claims in California, and that would be huge for them. That would open the door to so much. So even if you have a contract, that's not going to prevent you from claiming, hey, you need to pay me these wages, right? Or reporting criminal activity. So reporting, hey, they didn't give this money to charity, and we knew it. And we saw it, we knew it, we have testimony, we'll be witnesses against this. We'll go to the federal or state criminal cases for these people. They can still testify to that. There's nothing stopping them. The NDA is not going to stop them. Nothing is preventing them from reporting that crime. In fact, if they try to retaliate for that, Vshojo would be punished. You cannot try to retaliate against somebody for reporting a crime. That's not okay anywhere in the US and in most countries in general. So the process for this would be to gather documentation and witnesses, which they're probably doing right now. Their lawyers, particularly Iron Mouse, is probably gathering a lot of documentation, getting witnesses together, and then you'd report it to the labor commissioner. In this case, probably the labor commissioner of California. And after that, there's a required mediation. Now, this might be what why they're saying wait, why Iron Mouse said in her video, hey, we need to get to a certain part of the legal process. It might be because they want to go to that mediation, see if they can get a settlement, see if Vshojo can make this right. Otherwise, if that fails, there's going to be a civil lawsuit. They can bring a civil lawsuit, in which case we'd all get that information. It'd be public information. We'd be able to talk about it. We'd be able to see everything that's going on. It would be a nightmare for them from Vshojo if they aren't already bankrupt, which we'll eventually touch on that topic. So then we got the silencing the mouse, and as well as the other talent. There are laws that prevent retaliation against employees reporting unlawful acts. You've probably heard of whistleblower protections. That's a whistleblower. Iron Mouse is a whistleblower saying there is something illegal going on here, i.e., taking money that's supposed to go to charity, whether that's embezzlement or whatever else, or a fraudulent transfer, like that can be reported, and there's no way you can retaliate against that. Also, there's another California law that's passed that arguably could prevent NDAs from silencing the employees in regards to reporting bad workplace behavior. So saying, hey, we're not being paid, and they took this money from charity. The California law is pretty clear that the NDA cannot stop them from saying that. Now, there are other things that they could argue the NDA could stop them from talking about.
An NDA does not stop you from also, if something's clearly illegal, I don't think an NDA is going to, I don't think you're going to get hurt by an NDA for breaking the NDA if it's something literally illegal.
About stuff like personal relationships or personal interactions, maybe for now, but that NDA is not going to silence them from speaking out on what is clearly illegal. Further, aside from whistleblower protections, you can't stop the reporting of crime. I cannot say that enough. Reporting a crime is always permissible, and no NDA in the world can silence you from reporting a crime.
Exactly. There we go. You can't get silenced by an NDA if a crime is clearly happening.
That's just the way it is. That's just the facts. So
So yeah, that doesn't hurt. You can't. Okay, wait a minute. Right. An NDA, NDA does not. I'm trying to think. Right. NDA does not prevent you from reporting a crime, obviously.
a crime. That's just the way it is. That's just the facts. So beyond that, let's get into what's going on with the criminal liability, and that could
run,
fall
here-
on the corporation, or that could fall on people like Justin, the gun run Ignacio, the CEO. Once again, depending on his level of culpability and the culpability of the COO, the CTO, the other officers of the corporation, this criminal liability could fall not just on the corporation as a whole, but on these individuals, depending on how complicit they were in this scheme and how much knowledge they had of this. So let's get into the criminal side, shall we? So we've got obviously civil claims, which this is regarding the $500,000 that was not given to charity, that was taken, and God knows what they did with it. Probably, by the way, my best guess on what they did with this is they are leveraged, and they were used that money to pay their current expenses, and they were over leveraged. So
And probably is all the other employees, not counting the talents that they should have been paying.
they were hoping to pay them back in the future and make some miracle money and pay them back in the future and get everything right. They didn't do that. They didn't give the money to the charity. Now, that's once again, it's my speculation about what they did, but based on what Case on Stream, which just happened just a couple minutes ago, I stopped watching it. It seems they're in financial trouble. And if you're in financial trouble, what are you going to do? You're going to take the money and you're going to use it to pay immediate expenses, probably staff, because they needed to pay them or they'd be hit by labor law restrictions. That's why the JP CEO got paid and Kason didn't. So that's what I think they did with that money. Now, if they did that with that money, there's three things that can happen here. Civil claims, both by the donors themselves and by Mouse and anybody else who's a big donor or gave money, federal crimes, and their state crimes. Let's talk about civil claims. So first of all, donors can file suit against Vshojo. So if they donated money or you donated money, you're out there, you donated money, you might want to just have a chit chat with a lawyer and talk about what you did, how much money you gave, and what's going on with that. And then there's claims, once again, these are different types of civil claims for misrepresentation, breach of contract, fraudulent transfer. Particularly fraudulent transfer is at play here because of the large sum of money, because it's a massive amount of money. Misrepresentation because they misrepresented that money was going to go to the charity and they didn't give it there. And breach of contract because there's an implicit contract. There's a fiduciary duty there to take that money and give it to the charity. And they broke that understanding. They broke that agreement. And Iron Mouse could also likely bring a claim as well, because once again, she was part of that. She, I'm sure, donated to that as well herself. So she probably has status as a donor, but also just to clear herself from that and saying, hey, look, this money was supposed to go there. It didn't. Let me put this claim in there to make it very clear that they're doing wrong. So I think Iron Mouse also could back up the donos in that. Let's go to federal crimes. This is the fun one. This is the one where they're going to end up paying the money from behind bars. Charity fraud is typically investigated by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. Now, oftentimes they're working in conjunction with the state attorney general. So those working as kind of a team in order to look into all types of charity fraud and really do the investigation. Once again, we are very preliminary. We're at the allegation phase. This would all need to be investigated. We need to see proof. We need to see documents. But the people who get that are the FTC and the state attorney general. And I think the state attorney general of California, which I'm sure many people are going to contact after this, will be very, very interested in hearing this case. $500,000 from an immunodeficiency charity. I'm sorry. That is deplorable. And that's disgusting. And once again, I try to keep this to...
actually insane, stealing that much money. Especially for a talent that you have a contract with that suffers from that actual... This charity of a disability she also suffers from, and you steal 500K from that is beyond disgusting.
objective legal analysis, but the scope of this really does give me a righteous indignation with the amount of money that was taken here from a charity. So depending on the nature of the fraud, a breach of that duty to deliver that money can violate several federal laws. So it can be wire fraud. Wire fraud is one of the easiest ones to get them for. And certainly if they wanted to go down that route, and it is a case where they received the money via the internet, because wire fraud is not just old school wires and telephones, it's the internet. They got them, boys. They got them on that one. Money laundering, potentially making false statements about where the money would go, misrepresentations. Also the FTC Act, which involves various regulation of money regarding charities. All of those things they can be hit with, and they could get real jail time on this. This is serious jail time in real prison. This is not fun, down under the sun. This is all.
This is most likely going to federal prison as well. Like full on, no fun federal prison we're talking.
Potential prison time for people at Vshojo. Beyond that, there's state law. There's California Penal Code 503, 501, 515 regarding embezzlement. So assuming that they took the money and they embezzled it and they use it elsewise, that's right there. Breach of fiduciary duty, because they have a duty. They're the trustee of that money to give it over to the charity. That was their duty, fiduciary duty. Anybody who, for example, is holding money for somebody else. So if you gave money to a lawyer and that lawyer is supposed to go pay for real estate, and they don't pay for real estate, they pay for, cocaine and whatever else, that's going to be a huge, massive problem. So that would be a breach of fiduciary duty. This was a breach of fiduciary duty in the charity sense. Misleading and deceptive fundraising, I think that speaks for itself. They said the money was going to go one place, it didn't go there. Also, reporting and regulatory violations. So how do they do their taxes? How do they report this? They needed to report this to the government, to the regulatory authorities, saying, hey, we donated this money to charity. Did they take a tax write-off for this? Did they write this off on their taxes? Did they make a false financial report? That's massive. And the last one, and the two things you're afraid of, even the Joker is afraid of, is the IRS. And the tax law.
Yeah, the Joker is more scared of the IRS than he is of Batman.
Violations, both. And then the tax law, by the way, is at the state and the federal level. So it's both levels. But tax law is perhaps the most massive place, because if they chose to try to take a write-off on this or to falsify their taxes, oh boy, the tax man does not F around. And that's where the people could see very, very serious state consequences. Now, let's talk.
I think this might be the first time I've seen someone at full on side with the IRS. Maybe this is the only time I've seen it, and it's probably going to be the only time.
About the other girls and a little bit about what went on with them. Obviously, a lot of them have pulled out of the branding. They've no longer branded.
Update, all of them have
themselves as Vshojo. They're going to have talks on this. Obviously, Kason had a very clear talk. I think Henya is going to talk, and some others are going to have a commentary as well, which I may have follow-up videos on that. But it very much seems like these talents were, especially since Kason said she was shafted out of wages, that she didn't get paid her wages. In that case, I think they need to file claims as well. I think all of the talents need to consider, particularly in California, filing labor law claims. And once they do that, the other thing that's really going to be awesome for them is all those no retaliation clauses apply to them, so they can start speaking more. Now, they need to talk to their attorneys and make sure this works for them under their situation. Their personal attorney is comfortable with this. But assuming they are, once they do that, once the claim is initiated, they will be able to say a little bit more. Now, there's another factor here. This applies to Iron Mouse and all the other girls and why they're not going to talk. If you're going to go into a lawsuit situation or you're going to sue, you want to shut up. You want to say as little as possible, only what you can say or have to say. So even if these girls can speak technically, or they could say it and they're not going to get punished under the law, or Vshojo's not going to be able to sue them for breaching NDA, there may be other good reasons for them not talking. However, that might be able to open up them explaining a little bit more to their audience and giving a little bit more context. And maybe at some point they want to do that. So that's something there. But beyond that, they're owed wages. They're all owed wages. They need to get paid. They need to get paid the money that they're owed. And I say wages, although wages people usually associate with employees, and payments are usually the independent contractors in terms of the language there. But to me, these people are not just amazing talents. They're workers. They're true employees that are dedicating a significant amount of their time, and they are giving some control and authority over to this entity to direct them to do certain things and to take certain actions. And beyond that, the financial arrangement between them is one that I think they could argue, particularly with the restrictiveness of the contract, that set them up as employees. Even further, put Vshojo on the defensive. If all of them file claims in California, labor law claims, it's on Vshojo to prove that they're not employees. So put Vshojo on the defensive. Don't allow Vshojo to take the offensive. Take the offensive against Vshojo. Take it to them. Take it to their court. Push them. And I think that is the right emphasis as they go forward with this. And I'm sure there's lots of California attorneys that would help them. And frankly, if any of the girls needed any help finding a California attorney, I'm happy to try to hook them up and recommend them for them. But that said, I think the girls do need to consider their options and speak with local attorneys. Beyond that, this is a big one, especially after the case on stream. I think they need to really worry about Vshojo declaring bankruptcy, because based on the financial situation as explained by
I think they already have been. I think, again, probably by the end, they're done. I mean, they have nothing.
the JP CEO, it looks like they're not doing good. And what I am worried, and the strategy that came out of case on stream, which I think is putting together, is they are not paying the independent contractors because they're planning to declare bankruptcy. I have seen this before as corporate counsel, as evil corporate counsel from my back days when I did that. That is something corporations do. When they're going under, they stop paying out because they know they're just going to declare bankruptcy. And what happens when you declare bankruptcy? Well, there's two types of debt. There's secured debt and there's unsecured debt. Secured debt gets paid first. The stuff like mortgages or something like a lien on a car, right? It's secured by something. There's something they can take. That's paid first. Then there's going to be employees' wages. Those are paid. But anything else, including independent contractors, is unsecured and dischargeable. So the big thing they're banking for is to get to discharge the payments because they label them as independent contractors. That's their strategy. I mean, I see it clear as day. And to me, the question is not only are they going to declare bankruptcy, it's how quickly are they going to declare bankruptcy? In fact, if I was the CEO of Vshojo, I'd be running right now into the bankruptcy court to declare it right now so they can stop all payments. And now that would put it on them to battle back. That would put it on the talents. So I think the Vshojo response is going to be to immediately declare bankruptcy. And why is that? They lost their largest talent. There's no way they can financially recover. You can't explain to me.
I mean, as of now, they didn't just lose their largest talent. They lost them all. Like, they have nobody left.
How Vshojo, who is already losing money by the own admission of their staff, by the own admission of the JP CEO, is already losing money. They're already not able to pay. And suddenly they're going to lose all their talent and be able to pay? No one's going to give this company a loan, especially with this bad PR. Are you kidding me? No, this is a clear bankruptcy scenario. And in bankruptcy, they're going to try to discharge that. Now, there's a little ray of hope, a tiny little smidgen of hope, right? Is that there is a special exemption for unpaid commissions to independent contractors. So debt qualifies for priority status, meaning it gets higher status than unsecured debt, if during the 12 months before the bankruptcy, 75% of the contractor's own earnings were from the debtor. So in this case, that would apply to most of the girls, I imagine. Now, maybe they have other earnings or other money from elsewhere, but if they were making most of their money from Vshojo, that is a big exemption that could fly in there. Once again, it doesn't guarantee they get paid out, but it does give a glimmer of hope if they go the bankruptcy route, which I think it's looking like right now. That's what I've got for today for the Fast Facts version, guys. This has been insane. I will be on top of this. Check out the live if you want to get all the questions, the banter, all that other stuff, and I will catch you on the
All right, that's that one. Then we're gonna go this one. Then a little
Every time
update
I hit
from we'll react to this one, then we'll update from today's thing, which is a little bigger news on those.
The bankruptcy of Vshojo is inevitable. At this point, all signs are pointing to insolvency. So today we're going to go over the bankruptcy process and exactly what it's going to look like and how it's going to affect Vshojo. Of course, it's the Legal Minds where we teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and this is a fast facts, quick and dirty version of the legal education and news that gets best to you as quickly as possible. So smash a like and leave a comment if you like the fast facts versions. Now, getting into this, we've been covering the breakup of Vshojo as has happened and been covered by many channels. But one thing that I've said quickly, and I think I was probably the first person to point this out, is that bankruptcy is the way that this is going to wind up. As we're seeing things play out, as people are speaking out, it's very clear looking at the roster, looking at the fact that there's literally no talent left. This is a list as of today. All of the red people are confirmed to have left. So Zentraya, Ironmouse, Project Melody, Hime, Kason, Haruka, Henya, Giga, Kuro, Matara, Michi, everybody here, Hestia, Yutori, Okamoto, Amelie, everybody is essentially out. Then we've got people that left earlier, like Vebe, Silverbill, and Aminia. And then Fruit is the only one that's left that even is, not made an official announcement, but she's removed Vshojo from her profile. So she's expected to leave. So at this point, they have absolutely no profit generation. There is no way that there's any income coming in. And at that point, for any company, you are insolvent. If you were already having problems when all of your creators were at their maximum revenue generation and you still were not profitable, there's no way to be profitable with no revenue coming in. It's a simple 1 + 1, and there really is no other way around that. Now, we're also seeing the scope of this debt, and even as of a while ago, this is not even totally current, but this is very recent here in 2025. You're seeing that they are about 2 million deep in loans and in what they owe to talent. $2 million. There's no digging out of that. There's no going in and asking for another loan to bail them out when they've got no one working for them. This is leading to insolvency. And what happens in insolvency? Well, naturally, it would be a bankruptcy. That is the natural thing for a company to do, particularly when they are buried by claims, when they're going to be buried by lawsuits, when they're going to be buried by obligations and unpaid wages. You're going to have to turn to bankruptcy. So what does the bankruptcy process actually look like? Many people are not familiar with it or only know it in a personal context. We're going to talk about it in a corporate context today. So what that actually looks like is either reorganization or liquidation. Now we're talking about personal bankruptcy. There's different chapters we're not talking about personal bankruptcy. We're talking about corporate bankruptcy. For personal bankruptcy, you might be familiar with that. There's also municipal bankruptcy, and there's other sorts of bankruptcies that are in the bankruptcy code. But in this specifically, there's two that would apply, either Chapter 7 or Chapter 11. And I'm going to explain the difference. The difference is really between reorganization or liquidation. Chapter 11 is reorganization. This is for companies that have a chance. So you're saying there's a chance of recovery and profitability. So if that company can get back to making money, then it can be reorganized. And you can say, hey, look, let's restructure this. Let's, change the terms of some debt. Let's, maybe trim some fat off the company, and let's get this thing going. However, Chapter 7 is for those that realistically cannot reorganize or return to profitability. Chapter 7 is way faster, cheaper, and handled in months versus years for Chapter 11. And in Chapter 7, a trustee takes over versus Chapter 11 with existing management. So looking at all these factors, it's very clear it's going to be Chapter 7. They're also a mainly service-oriented company. They don't have heavy in products or assets. And if you think about it, the only real assets, the big assets that a VTuber company would normally have are the models. And like it or not, I mean, at the end of the day, they are an asset. They could be sold to somebody to be skinwalked by some other person, right? And of course, the Vtuber community would absolutely not accept that. That's deplorable in the general culture of the VTubing community. But technically, from a legal standpoint, it is an asset. Intellectual property right is an asset. So they could sell those assets, except for they don't own those assets. Because the creators own their own IP, there really isn't much to sell. They probably don't own more than a couple of staplers and some desks. I mean, that's probably all they really have is some office stuff to liquidate. And that's probably about it. They probably got a lot of liabilities, but nothing to really offset that in significant assets. They weren't investing in real estate. They didn't have any heavy machinery. There's nothing that they could actually, turn over and sell, like a fleet of trucks or cars. So what we're seeing here is going to be Chapter 7. It's going to be a liquidation. There's no way they're going to want to put the existing management, which has been a failure for the past years, and we're talking years, they've been failing in profitability. They're not going to say, hey, you guys can totally turn this around. We're going to give you a chance. There's no chance of that. I think the judge is going to look at it as this and say, nope, it's definitely going to be Chapter 7. You guys are clearly down that lane. So let's go down the lane of Chapter 7. What's the process for that? So Vshojo's got to submit a petition for bankruptcy. Now, we haven't seen this yet. As soon as this gets filed, I'm sure we're going to report in it. I'll report in it. I'll let you guys know. But we're going to see a submission of a petition for bankruptcy. When they submit that, they're going to also have to list all their assets, liabilities, their income, expenditures, contracts, leases. And this is going to be very interesting because that's when we're going to get the truth. How deep in financial hot water was Vshojo? That is going to be a spicy meatball that I think all the people in the VTM community, drama tubers and otherwise, everybody, right, is going to sink into and really analyze. And that's going to be an absolute bombshell to see exactly how bad they were performing over the past. And I think that's also instructive for future corporations to not have such ridiculous predictions for profitability. Now, what would happen is after they do that list, they submit all the petition, they're going to get it turned over to a bankruptcy trustee. So the bankruptcy trustee is going to take control of everything. They're going to take all the assets, and their job is to liquidate those assets and distribute them to creditors. So taking anything they have of worth and distributing it. But there's an order. At the top of the list are secured creditors. So anybody who has a secured loan or a mortgage, etc. And then there's unsecured. And that's everybody else, including people like talents. Now, I did mention there is an exemption which might give them as prospective independent contractors priority status over other claims. That might be possible. It may be possible they will cover some money. Maybe. However, it ain't going to be much. And it certainly won't be enough to satisfy all the obligations, particularly the massive charity obligation.
I mean, they're so far down. Even if they save their money, there's no way they can come back. Okay, for argument's sake, let's say they have enough money to survive. No one's going to want to sign with them to the point there's no reason to stay alive anyway.
That's going to be something that's looming out there, and that's going to be something that the trustee is going to have to deal with. Now, another big question that people have asked is about NDAs. And I want to clarify this because I have said on certain media, etc., that yes, the NDAs are going to be, at some point, they're going to be able to speak up. They're going to be able to talk. But there's some legal distinction here. And I want to be very clear because this is something that is kind of a legal, not a gray area, but it's the difference between the law technically and the practical reality. So in the law, technically, a bankruptcy only discharges financial obligations, and an NDA is a non-financial obligation. So it's an obligation of confidentiality. So technically, an NDA is not gotten rid of by bankruptcy. Bankruptcy does not void NDAs in and of itself. However,
this is what your ear looks like, filled with wax. Here's a cotton swab. Watch.
Interesting.
It's practically either difficult or almost impossible to enforce NDAs afterwards. Certainly impracticable. Like you cannot actually, in reality and practice, go and enforce these things. Why? Well, first of all, the legal priority is given to satisfying the creditors, to satisfying the outstanding debts. It's not given to, hey, we're going to allow you all this funding. We're going to allow you to use all this money to go chase people down and enforce NDAs. That's not given a top priority on the list of things, particularly by the bankruptcy trustee. Further, it's just the lack of funds. They're not going to possess enough funds to enforce all these NDAs and go out and sue everybody and their mother. And everybody and their mother is actually not a just tongue-in-cheek statement. They literally made Silvervale's mother sign an NDA. We're going to talk about that on my next
She did say that.
live. But those NDAs, they're not going to have the funds. It costs money. It's not free to go enforce those NDAs. Also, the last thing is, this is something the court can take into effect, is that it's an unfair benefit to the company, particularly given the company's track record, particularly given that the company was using the NDAs to silence people from speaking about legitimate workplace grievances. And I've already talked about the fact that certain law, like California law and other laws, may actually allow them to speak up on those NDAs, particularly as it relates to workplace grievances. That's completely separate from the bankruptcy process. So there may be ways for them, and there likely are ways for them to speak up about those NDAs despite the bankruptcy process, etc. But beyond that, it would be wholly unjust to allow Vshojo, which essentially kept them from making money for some of them up to a year, even more than a year. There's records of them not paying people back now and accounts of them not paying back in 2023, way back in the day. So they're not going to say, hey, look, we're going to allow you to keep, to silence these people, and the fact that you screwed them out of money, you shafted them for multiple years and in a massive amount. I mean, we saw 2 million was that amount projected there. Let's say that half of that is loans and half of that is talent. Say it's 1 million in loans and 1 million in talent. That's just me spitballing and guessing. Yeah, that doesn't look good. That does not look good with
Very bad.
that amount of outstanding debt. So I do think there's going to be a point at which practically they'll be able to speak out, they'll be able to talk up, and I will caution all of the talents to consult with their individual lawyers when their individual lawyer that is representing them, not me, but their lawyer representing them, tells them they can speak up. Do it, right? Do it. When their lawyer tells them do it. And I think that day will come sooner than later. So everyone, please be patient. Let the process play out. Let the legal process.
It might already have come already because they're all gone. So maybe the NDA doesn't work anymore. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just talking about things I don't know I'm talking about.
Does happen. The best thing you can do is to support your creators. And it's so lovely that we had Iron Mouse breaking record. She's going to get to probably 1 million on her IDF fundraiser on Tilify. Absolutely great. That thing shot up overnight, and we're seeing some silver lining to a very bad situation. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll catch you on the next.
All right, we'll link these 2 videos in the comments. All right. Okay, so Vshojo decided to, I would say, in my personal opinion, very stupidly actually say something. These actually, I think, did more damage. Okay, I'll look the replies later. But obviously, this comes from Vshojo, which they have no one, clearly. So here's from Vshojo themselves. Yeah, that's it. Vshojo has failed, and I've mismanaged the company into the situation you're all witnessing. So today I'm sharing the difficult news that Vshojo is shutting down, and I take responsibility for the decision that led us to this point. I've been doing everything I can to fundraise and right the ship. Don't you mean ride? You can't even say things right. Okay, whatever. The ship the past few months, but despite my efforts, we are in a worse position, and those I care about are now paying the price. Over the past few years, we raised around $11 million to ensure a bold, talent-first approach in Vtuber, prioritizing the creators and community over the short-term profits to achieve Long-term situation, our fundraising went directly to our creators through generous splits, debut investments, infrastructure, concerts, events, and staffing, all designed to support them. We also wanted talent to own their IP, which they do, which we knew was a unique creator-first approach for an agency. However, despite all our efforts, the business failed to generate the revenue we needed to sustain that model. Eventually, we ran out of money. Additionally, I acknowledge that some of the money spent by the company was raised in connection with the talent activity, which I later learned was intended for a charitable initiative. At the time, we were working hard to raise an additional investment capital to cover our costs, and I firmly believed, based on the information available to us, that we would be able to do so and cover all expenses. We were unsuccessful in our fundraising efforts. I made the decision to pursue funding, and I own its consequences. I am deeply sorry to all the talent, staff, friends, community members who believed in our brand. You do not deserve this, Justin Gunrun. And let's look at the comments now. We're not going to be pretty, obviously. Our Mousie's first. She broke my heart, my spirit, and my trust. And why didn't you let us know the moment you realized this fish? Why did I get the information 2 weeks ago? Not from the company, but from my homegirl. Why did you lie to the Japanese branch a week ago that everything was good and taken care of? Yeah, so not looking good. And I'm not even sure. I think this is just a ploy. I'm not even sure if they're actually shutting down or not. Maybe this is a ploy, an excuse. Who knows what actually is? But if they apologized when it first broke, they could have survived. Maybe said I'm sorry, but not so much now. What, it's been 3 days, maybe 4, and their reputation's done. Everyone's gone. Their talents are gone. Everyone's gone. They have nothing. It will not be long till this gold check mark no longer is there because they can't afford the check mark anymore. Because that check mark, if you don't know, let me check. Blue, where's gold? Gray. Where's the gold one? Gold, okay. Gold check marks are for. Does it say how much they cost? I don't know. Anyway, I think it's $1,000 for that check mark. But anyway, now let's go to on Silver Veil, which honestly is kind of also nasty. So Silver Veil recap. Silver Veil in 2020 wanted to play the Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy game. Got harassed endlessly. Docs and stuff. If you are around, you know what happened. So she talked on her stream about it, that apparently not only did she not receive any support, also there was one Vtuber who supported the harassment. Also, Henya used to be, if you know who she was prior, she also got kicked off the internet. So she did not receive support at all. Gunrun called her in during that conversation. He said she was a disappointment and harmful to the brand and inconvenience. I have no words to say on this. Like, that is astonishing to see even say to one of you view as employments. Oh, here's another one. No go. Okay. I'm entirely what she said. Okay. She said I was called in and to put into call with Gun Run, someone that I admired and looked up to and wanted to please, someone I thought was the coolest person ever. He told me that I was a damage to the brand, that I was a disappointment. That is absolutely unacceptable way to treat an employee. I mean, they're obviously, I don't think they're not really, they're more obviously a contractor. I was told that me being harassed was an inconvenience to the other talents and did not and not to talk to any of them. Optics were more important than their talents' well-being. I was suspended from streaming. Worst in the game. I say this. Yeah, worst management I've ever seen. This is astounding. Like, how do you mess up this hard? Like, it is honestly, I've never seen someone this bad. Like, there's something else. Okay. But yeah, I didn't never expect it to be this bad. Okay. Yeah. Handle. Oh yeah, I was there when that happened. I will say, Silvale getting harassed for Hogwarts Legacy was a spirit that made people stop caring about what people thought. Because, and then obviously Pikami got bullied off the internet because she dared even think about playing the game. But that's beside the point. Yeah, the fact that Silvale was, one of the biggest. Where's the other thing I saw? Oh, it's over here. Oh, here it is. Well, who he was correct to, still potentially liable. 2 months. Yeah, this one person apparently left a few months ago, which 5 years in, and you leave 3 months ago, you're still probably liable for that, for what you did and stuff. So, all right, that's enough on the Vshojo. I have a little K-pop related, on Madein related to talk about. Okay. I will talk about this all tomorrow. I will have a surprise video tomorrow. So apparently, according to Emmet, the upcoming collection will only include the Japanese members, which there's only 3 of them. Obviously, Gain's gone. If you've been watching my Madein related videos and some streams I talk about, you know what goes on. Suhei, who is in a indefinite hiatus, so that only leaves. And Yesu's not there; it's removed. That only leaves Mashiro, Serena, and Nagomi. The theory is maybe it's a theory, maybe it's just us being frantic that maybe they're trying to remove all the Koreans and just make it a Japanese only. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to copy the Viz with only 3 members. Who knows? This company is actually disgusting as well. This is just as bad as Vshojo. It would be funny if they both collapsed in the same month or the same week. It'd be kind of funny, but you know, this one has more money than Vshojo, that's for sure. But what was it? Yeah, last hour. Yeah, Matt. Deleting the last. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, I do have the Madein Discord and the PAX Discord. Yeah, interesting enough. Apparently, 143 Entertainment is deleting Studio off their Instagram. So that's that. Yeah, that's all. Oh, yeah. Also, that apparently the DM thing, which I can actually pull that up. Actually, where is it? Okay. Okay, so where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. So apparently the thing. Oh, Oh, you're right. The tweet isn't available anymore. It's only Reddit posts now. They're these. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. So that said, yeah, I'll talk about that tomorrow. Yeah, they deleted the post of the Dragon Digital Master resigning. I'll talk about it tomorrow. If you're watching the readback on the stream and reach the end, like the video, like the stream, subscribe to me talking about B2B stuff, Madein stuff, K-pop, Asian esports, all the shebang. If you like any of this, comment your thoughts what you think of Vshojo's quick demise and destruction to nothing basically over 3 days. Until tomorrow, which I will release the Madein video. I will see y'all later. Bye-bye.
Welcome to the Blizzard Arena.
And the quest for a champion begins today.
The anticipation has been building, and it is finally time. We are live.
Are you ready?
That is a really.
Can you get over the roof there? Oh my!
What a play! What a grab!
Another jump here off the high ground. Super goes forward, but gets stuck up. The EMP comes in, and ding! He rains down hell from above. Here comes Pine. Gets one, gets two. Looking for a bit more, gets another one.
Vshojo's down again. That heralds disaster generally with a fusion, and Carpe wasn't far behind. Prophet! He's killed 4 players now on his own.
From Vancouver, locks him in the sound barrier. Sound the bomb coming in from John. Oh my God! He does it again.
Flutter now moving onto the Widowmaker, taking the clutch into his own hands. The headshot and the headshot and the headshot.
Okay, I like this for the Gladiators. They're going to try and circle around. I'm going to call this the merry-go-round because it makes me laugh. Makes me happy, and Sean Force switches to the Widowmaker at just the right time. Oh, the Raven!
I'm a best fish in the world.
Oh my word!
I mean, you could have told me that you spoke English, honestly.
The fans never thought they'd see this day. It took 43 matches. Feels like a really emotional moment here.
All right, I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye.